In almost every Western ever made, there's at least an underlying theme about moving west. Whether it's going west to make your fortune, or to save the town, or fight your uncle, you get the idea. But this is a Western about going east. If you're not familiar with the game, Red Dead 2 follows the character of Arthur Morgan and the Dutch Vanderlyn gang as they attempt to flee the people trying to track them down and save up enough resources to run away to Tahiti. I should say this video will contain spoilers for the game, but hey, if you like to live dangerously, stick around. And also, if you like the video, please subscribe, really means a lot. Red Dead Redemption 2 has some pretty overt themes throughout the story, but if you ask me, one of, if not the biggest and most important theme is about change. The characters are not who they thought they were, and the world is not what they thought it was. And this really struck me with how the chapters were laid out and what locations they choose to put you in, because to me, it really seems like the story is anchored in the evolution of society. Let me explain. Chapter 1. We open with our gang in the middle of the woods, freezing cold, just looking for any kind of shelter. And as much as you're running from them, the core issues you're dealing with in this chapter isn't the Pinkertons or some rival gang, it's hunting, and shelter, and determining who in your gang you can trust. It's a very harrowing but very primal experience. There's a couple of people that you meet out there, but for the most part, you're just trying to survive. And eventually, Dutch pushes the gang to continue moving east out of the mountains, which brings us to our first taste of civilization. Chapter 2 takes us to the town of Valentine, and Valentine is the perfect representation of early expansion in the West. It's simple, and it's beautiful, really, in a lot of ways. The people are generally pretty kind to each other. The one-road town is centered around a church, so we get this real sense of community that they have together. And hell, even at least most of the missions that come out of Valentine are pretty clear-cut and easily digestible. You get in a bar fight here, you punch another guy there, you go out drinking with your friends, boom. And to really drive this point home, and the one road that is in this town, it's not even finished. At the end of the street, you can see a house that is still being built. I feel like this is where most people end up spending a good amount of their initial playthrough, which I know that I did. And Arthur feels perfectly at home in this kind of environment. But, of course, their old rivals, the Pinkertons, show up, force their hand, and continue to push them further east into Chapter 3. Enter Rhodes. Rhodes is mildly bigger than Valentine, but the problems there are much, much more modern and nuanced. You got a couple of feuding families trying to own the town, you got politics, activists, social issues, hierarchy. Rhodes really is the natural next step for a place like Valentine, because the more people come and the longer they stay, the bigger and more complex everything becomes. Dutch immediately goes to work getting in with the town and ends up working with the sheriff. Already we can start to see Arthur feeling a little over his head with this more quote-unquote civilized world that he's being thrust into, but you keep moving east, which of course brings us to Chapter 4. Saint Denis. A city full of industry and new ideas, a city 100 times bigger and more complicated than somewhere like Rhodes. The moment I walked into this place as Arthur, everything didn't feel right. The way Arthur's dressed, the way he talks, even the way he interacts with people in Saint Denis makes him stand out immediately. You go around saying howdy, and everyone else responds with hello. And the missions, oh my gosh, the missions. Whereas in a place like Valentine, you might be taking members of your posse to go get groceries in town. In Saint Denis, you're going to fancy dress parties, rubbing elbows, playing poker on a boat, helping a man make the first electric chair. The world is full of all new and fancy ideas in Saint Denis. And the more time you spend in it as this rootin' tootin' pointin' shootin' cowpoke, the more you just want to go back to that simpler time. Well, as if you got some kind of weird monkey's paw wish-granting thing, in Chapter 5, you were jerked out of the social meet and greets and thrown into the middle of the exact polar opposite. You're thrown onto a boat, brought into captivity, and wake up on the island of Guam. And this place is different. There's a cat and there's a mouse in this world, and you do not get to choose which one you are. All of your freedom has been stripped away from you, and the man with the gun makes the rules. I love this chapter because in every other chapter in the game, it's been building and building society, showing the good and the bad that comes with growth of the quote-unquote modern world. But then it immediately yanks you out of all that. It throws you to a world that is more brutal than anything else in the game. And I know this is a stretch to say, but the fact that you only get 2 or 3 quest beacons really echoes this idea to me. It's not a complex, huge world for you to let your hair down and explore. In fact, in all the missions, you're literally being lugged around in a way that's almost out of your control. It really starts to make you appreciate even places like Saint Denis, because even if you didn't fit in there, I mean, it's better than not having any control at all. Well, it just so happens that wish is granted too. But you can't really ever go back to where you were, can you? Chapter 6, the final core chapter. Arthur gets back on a boat, sails back to the States, and is greeted with an even more grim world than the one he left. There's a couple of towns in this area you could go explore, but this is not the same world you remember. It's darker. The people are hurting, and at this point, Arthur doesn't even know where he belongs. He doesn't want any part of this world, and the world doesn't seem to want him either. This place is corrupted by politicians, revenge, racism, just general hatred. It's a world where the good guys can't even win without bending their morals to make a difference. Everyone Arthur cared for is gone, and most of the people Arthur thought he could trust are willing to stab, shoot, hang, or kill for the sake of saving their own skin. This is why I love how the main game ends. No guns, no technology, just a mano-a-mano fistfight. It's just so damn poetic. The most animal instinct that humans have is survival of the fittest. And even though the world keeps getting smaller and smaller as societies and technologies get more and more complex, people never change. They just show you who they were the whole time. And as much as we'd like to go back to how things were, you can't. There's nothing to go back to. Society and culture will always be growing and changing, but you can't keep running. Sometimes you have to stand still. Thanks for watching. I know this was kind of a little bit of a different video for me. This is actually based off of a Reddit post that I made, of all things, right? Many years ago. But I wanted to try this out and see what people thought, so please let me know what you think in the comments. Hit me a like if you do like this sort of thing, and yeah, we'll see what we come up with for next week, but I will see you there.